You know, before there was evil, before there was darkness, even before our world was formed, there was an angel of dazzling beauty named Lucifer. His very name means light-bearer, the morning star. The Bible describes him as a perfect creation, full of wisdom, radiant in beauty, his very being adorned with precious stones. Some scholars even believe that his voice and breath carried the music of heaven itself. Just imagine this: an angel walking into the presence of God, and every word he spoke became the sound of a celestial symphony. And then, the story takes a turn. That very greatness became the seed of his downfall. I want you to pause for a moment and think about this. Have you ever known someone, or maybe even yourself, who started out humble and sincere, but little by little, success, beauty, or intelligence became a trap? A friend once confided to me, "Years ago, all I wanted was to live a steady life, to work hard so my family had food on the table. But when my career took off, I started comparing myself to others. I wanted to prove I was better, richer, more respected. And one day I realized, I no longer had the simple joy I once had." Have you ever felt that way? When your eyes stop looking upward and instead focus only inward? That's how it all began for Lucifer. He didn't become Satan, the adversary of God, in an instant. It all started with a single thought, a whisper in the heart. I want to rise higher. I want to sit on the throne of the Most High. That thought wasn't silenced. It was fed. It grew into ambition, then into open rebellion. Revelation tells us that a third of the angels followed him. That means pride didn't just consume one heart. It swept away countless others. In everyday life, this is not so unfamiliar. A company leader begins with a vision to serve, to build something meaningful. But once success comes, pride takes root. And slowly, admiration turns to resentment, and glory fades into shadow. I believe many of you have seen similar stories, in families, in communities, perhaps even in your own heart. The Bible says Lucifer once walked among the stones of fire, close to God's own presence and power. He witnessed creation itself, hearing the voice of God speak galaxies into existence. And yet, how could someone so close to glory fall so far? The answer is simple but sobering. When your eyes no longer look to the Creator, even heaven can become a place where you lose your way. When I share this story with older believers in church gatherings, I often see a deep resonance. Many tell me, after all these years, what matters most is not wealth or status, but peace of heart, love of family, and a walk with God. That truth stands in stark contrast to Lucifer's path. The closer we are to the light, the more humility we need, because only humility keeps us in the light. Let me give you another picture. Think of a sunflower, brilliant and strong. It thrives only as long as it keeps turning toward the sun. But if one day it turns only toward itself, it will wither and die. We are no different. We were created to turn toward God. The moment we stop looking up and start looking only at ourselves, our souls begin to wither, no matter how successful we appear on the outside. And this isn't just theology. It's also psychology. Research shows that people who live with gratitude and humility are healthier, less prone to depression, and even live longer. Gratitude turns our eyes outward. Humility places us rightly within the bigger story. Pride does the opposite. It locks us inside ourselves, and in that prison, no matter what we achieve, it is never enough. Lucifer had everything: light, music, authority, the nearness of God. But he wanted more, and that more was the very thing that turned an angel of light into the enemy of light. His story is not only ancient history, it is a mirror, reflecting our choices today. So let me ask you, if one day you gained everything you ever dreamed of, money, recognition, success, would you still have the humility to keep looking upward? Or would you begin to look down on everyone else? That is the question Lucifer's story leaves with us. When I read the scriptures closely, one detail always strikes me. Lucifer did not fall all at once. He didn't become the enemy of God in a single flash. It began with something small, a single thought, a whisper in the heart. And that is what makes pride so dangerous. Great downfalls are often born from seeds so tiny we hardly notice them. Have you ever experienced this? A small feeling of jealousy, a passing thought of comparison, a spark of pride when you're praised. Left unchecked, those small things can grow into something heavy that overshadows our lives. I once spoke with a father who admitted, "I was so proud when my son succeeded, but soon I began comparing him to others. Instead of celebrating his achievements, I wanted his success to prove me right, to show we were better." That's when I knew something was wrong. And he laughed, shaking his head. Isn't it strange how we can turn our greatest joys into chains we place on ourselves? Lucifer was given wisdom, beauty, and authority. But instead of gratitude, he chose comparison. Instead of serving, he longed to rule. That whisper, "I deserve more," was the seed that turned into rebellion. We see echoes of this in our own lives. A husband and wife who once clung to each other through poverty and hardship. But as prosperity came, pride crept in. Each wanted to be right, each wanted to be greater. Slowly they drifted apart. Sometimes it isn't hardship that destroys love, but pride. The very thing that once promised strength becomes the reason for collapse. I've even seen this in churches. People start out serving with genuine devotion. But over time, praise, recognition, or position takes hold. Service becomes less about God and more about image. The same pride that pulled down Lucifer can quietly slip into our hearts if we're not watchful. That's why Jesus' words carry such power. Whoever wants to be greatest must become the servant of all. It runs against our human instincts. Lucifer wanted to rise above everyone, and it was that very desire that caused him to fall lower than anyone. The story of Lucifer isn't just about fear or judgment. It's a mirror, reminding us that true light remains only when we walk in humility. Imagine this. An angel once called the morning star, the leader of heaven's worship, standing so close to the throne of God. Yet because of pride, he became God's enemy. All of that happened for one reason. He let the word "I" grow too large. So how should we live, as ordinary people? I believe the answer is beautifully simple. Remember that we were created not to surpass God, but to walk with Him, to serve Him, to live in relationship with Him. When I sit with older believers, they often tell me, looking back, what matters most isn't wealth or recognition. It's peace of heart. It's the love of family. It's a steady walk with God. And I think that is the exact opposite of Lucifer's path. He had everything except gratitude. He had power, but not humility. And in the end, he lost the very peace he could have kept. Think of it again. A sunflower, tall and radiant, lives only as long as it keeps turning toward the sun. But the moment it turns inward, it begins to wither. We too were made to turn toward God. The moment we stop, no matter how bright we appear outwardly, something inside us begins to fade, and modern science even agrees. Studies show that people who live with gratitude and humility have stronger mental health, lower depression, and even longer lifespans. Gratitude turns our eyes outward. Humility keeps us grounded in a bigger story. Pride does the opposite. It locks us inside ourselves. And in that prison, nothing is ever enough. Lucifer had light, music, authority, and the closest seat to God's throne. But he wanted more. And that desire for more turned beauty into ugliness, and glory into disgrace. His story is ancient, but it's also timeless. So let me leave you with this question. If one day you gained everything you ever dreamed of, money, recognition, respect, would you still keep your eyes lifted upward in humility? Or would you begin to look down on others? The story of Lucifer asks each of us that question. And the answer we live out will shape not just our destiny, but the very light, or shadow, that fills our hearts.